we are. Hi, guys. Yay. Hi, Vanessa. I see Ricky. I see 10 people. I'm expecting quite a few people to be joining us today. So I'm just going to wait for everybody to pop on. Welcome to my kitchen. From the comfort of my own home, Danielle Rimbert here from Rimbert Illustration, bringing you a live art class. Yay! So if you have your supplies ready and in front of you, give me a thumbs up so I know that you are ready to paint. Hi, Nicole. Hi. I got a new phone too, so I'm trying to figure out where to look at everybody. Hi, Marcia. Dana, hey girl, hey. All right, so I just want to make sure that everybody's got their supplies ready. I'm going to go over the supply list. If you missed the supply list, it is back in the event. So if you catch the replay instead of the live video, you can go back to the event and on my page, and I have a list of all the main supplies that you need. Right on, Farrell. Nice to see ya. Yay, Tiffany, that's so cool. I'm glad. It's good for me too because, you know, most artists are pretty introverted, and so I'm kind of a mixture of both. I do a lot of extroverted things where I'm pretty outgoing and I like to talk to people, and I love connecting with people while we're teaching. Hi, Amanda. Hi, Ricky. So you guys should be able to ask me questions while we have stuff going on. So if you get to a spot where you get stuck, ask questions, ask for help. I'm all about it. Yay. Hopefully everybody can find the feed here. I'm going to wait a few minutes and just see how many people we can get to pop on. And in the meantime, I'm going to go over our supply list. So if you don't know me, my name's Danielle Rimbert, and I live in Port Orchard, Washington. And I am the owner of Rimbert Illustration, which is an art service business in Kitsap County. So before the lockdown here, I was teaching public art classes all over the place. I also paint windows and murals for people and do design logos and cartoons and stuff. And right on, Ricky, it is pretty cool, isn't it? It's kind of like we can talk to each other. I wish I could hear you guys too. That's cool. But anyway, I'm a full-time artist. This is my full-time job. And so I do a lot of events in the community, and so it's kind of hard when you do a lot of events in the community when public places are shut down. So I'm happy that we could be flexible and that we could all come together in this space, and that you guys can watch from the safety of your own home too, and that we can still create something beautiful. Let's take our mind off of the mess right now and play with colors, get messy, make something beautiful and learn something together. So what I'd like you guys to do while we're talking about the supplies is let me know where you're looking and watching from. Is everybody from Port Orchard? Is everyone from Washington? Are you guys from different states? Give me a thumbs up to know you got all your supplies ready, and then maybe shout out where you're from so we can kind of see a variety of, who we're working with here. So the public events I normally do, it depends on the venue, but the skill set that you need to be able to paint with us is 0. You don't have to have any experience. My 6-year-old daughter comes and paints with us a lot. I want to make sure that all of my classes have like just the basic supplies so that anybody can do it, and simple instructions to kind of break it down so you guys can really I'm looking and see where everybody's from. Really be able to follow along in an easy way. Squim, Silverdale, Port Orchard. All right, that's cool. I love East Bremerton representing, and Tequila. Love it. So I live in Port Orchard, Washington, if you guys all know where that's at. It's cool to see that Kitsap's representing here. If you know friends that are out of state and stuck, be sure to share this event. So the cool thing about doing the live classes that are different than doing the in-public classes is I can reach more people. I have a limited amount of people that I can teach at one time. But here and in this space, I can reach a lot of people. And then if you guys missed something in the original live feed, you can go back and you can watch the replay, and you can stop, you can pause, you can rewind, you can fast forward if I'm talking too much, all the good stuff. I love seeing all the people all over too. Okay, so I'm going to flip the camera around for a second because you guys don't need to look at me this whole time. You can look at the painting. This is what we're painting tonight. So it's kind of a Mount Rainier inspired painting. It's not exactly, so, you know, don't judge me. I won't judge you. Oh man, we got people in different states, right on. So I'm just using a canvas here, but if you only had paper, you could definitely still do this on paper. The only supplies that I asked you guys to get was one paintbrush. So I got a single flat brush here. If you only had a round brush, you could still make it work. It'll just take you longer to paint. And then one pencil, made in the USA. I don't know if it'll show up or not. There you go. America's pencil. There you go, guys. So I got a pencil. I have a paintbrush. I have a water bowl for cleaning off my paintbrush, some paper towels, and then I have a variety of colors. I don't know if you guys can see along the bottom of the screen here, but I've got my main colors that I need to make this painting. So for those of you guys that got kits and stuff, all you need for this painting, believe it or not, is white, blue, yellow, and red. Okay, because blue, yellow, and red are the primary colors, right? So that means that you can mix everything out of those colors. If you still need some practice mixing colors and that makes you nervous, you know, you can get some pre-mixed pink, orange, purple, blue, or whatever other colors you want to mix in there. But as long as you have white, blue, yellow, and red, you're good to go. Okay? So we got 33 people joining us, and it looks like, I don't know, are we ready to go? Thumbs up. Who's ready to paint? Who wants to make some stuff? Give me a boop, 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 boop. I see one heart. Everybody's still scrambling for stuff to do. All right, so if you have friends that are having trouble finding the event, make sure that you help them by sharing the link to them. I am doing this class for free, guys, but like I said, this is my job also. And so if you find value in this class, I have posted a virtual tip jar where you can make a contribution for more art supplies or for other stuff to keep it going for us. It's not necessity. I want anybody who wants to be able to paint to be able to join us. So that's just up there for you guys whenever you're ready, if you want to go back and check that out. So here's the painting. I'm going to take this away and I'm going to go to the blank canvas here. All right. Clear, nice, easy picture, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to create a basic outline on our canvas, okay? So we're going to do the painting in 3 steps. The first step is to use our number 2 pencil, dun, 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 and we're going to do some very light drawing on our canvas to kind of map out where we want everything on the surface to go. And then the second step is going to be called, or what we call block painting, where we use mostly solid colors just to kind of fill in the canvas where we want everything to be at and create a base. And then the third step will be to add all of our fancy details. Oh, Jessica, well, I'm so glad to have you back, and I hope that you know, you can do it again, and then you can compare the first one that you painted and share that with us. So what I'm hoping is that after we're done, guys, that you can all share your paintings in the comments too, so we can see how we all did together. So depending on if you're right-handed or left-handed, will depend on how you hold the pencil. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to start about halfway down the middle of the canvas on the right side. And I'm just going to draw a curved line to create a hill that goes all the way across the canvas. So if your line is all wonky and bumpy, guess what? Hills are wonky and bumpy, so that's okay. So I started about halfway down on the right side, and I just drew a curved line, wah, 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 and I ended about an inch or so above the bottom of the canvas. Above the above, I don't know what that is. Okay, so this is one hillside, and then we're going to go on the other side, and I'm going to draw another curved line, and I'm going to create another hill. So look, it's like 2 hills are crossing over each other, okay? So that's the first part of our very complicated painting that we're about to do, okay? So I just want to make sure that everybody does that, and you don't want to dig in the pencil, just nice soft lines. That way we can see what we're doing, but we don't have to, you know, add tons and tons of paint to cover it up. So next we're going to create our mountain. So we can start on the right side or on the left side, whichever is easier for you. But we're basically going to do a low, kind of triangle shape. And so you can add a little bumps to it to make it. So I'm going to start a little bit above on this side, and you can be kind of bumpy. I'm going to keep it nice and wide, and about where see the dip here is, that's where the top of my mountain is going to be. And then I can kind of bring it down. And so if you don't have a steady hand and you're drawing kind of wiggly lines, perfect. That's what mountains look like. So don't worry about, we don't want to make the lines perfectly straight and perfectly smooth, because mountains are bumpy and lumpy, okay? So we have 2 hills, and then we have our wide mountain, and we left a little bit of room up here because we want to paint our sky. So I'm going to go back to the original just to show you how that's going to look, okay? So see here, here's our first line that we drew. Here's our second line that we drew. And then here's our mountain. Okay? That's the line. And that's all you need your pencil for, if you can believe that. So does everybody have their pencil outline drawn? What do we think? Are we done with that part? Okay. So next, I'm going to take my flat brush, and I want to make sure that I have all of my colors ready to go. Okay, and if you have an extra plate, I like to keep a plate on the side for mixing, just in case you need to change some of the values of the colors. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is I want you to take a lot of white, okay, put it on your plate or wherever, and then take just a tiny bit of blue. See, I just have a little corner, and I'm going to mix a very, very light light blue, okay? So look, it doesn't have to be really dark. I want it to be really, really light, okay? And then you're going to take your flat brush, and you're going to go from one side of the canvas all the way to the other, okay? And then you're going to go, oh, I'm going up a little high, so let me scoot this up so you guys can see that a little bit better. There we go. All right, so if you're new to acrylic painting, I always tell people that the lower you hold your paintbrush, the more control you're going to have over the brush. And also, the more you work your brush back and forth over the paint while it's wet, the more smoothly it will blend. So I go all the way from right to left, and then as I'm going from right to left, I will slowly work my way down and then back up to smooth out the colors. So what I want to do is I want to take this light blue, and I want to take it all the way down to the top of my mountain, okay? So you can add, if it's too dark, you can just add more white to your brush, and that will fade it out, okay? So we're just going to take that light blue, and then so look, if you get next to the mountain, it's okay if you accidentally overlap the mountain, because we're going to paint over that later. But if you're really worried about it, you can just kind of outline along the edge and then brush and paint away from the side. So we don't want this sky to be super, super dark, because our mountain is dark, and we want to have a nice contrast for the background, okay? So you want to make it a nice light blue, okay? So if it's really dark, the other thing I want you guys to remember too is acrylic paint dries about a shade darker than you put it on the canvas. So see how dark that looks? It'll dry even darker than that. So if that is looking too crazy to you, you can just take a little bit more white paint and then add that over the top, okay? So you want a thick enough amount of paint that your brush glides easily along the canvas, but you don't want it so thick that you could just scoop it off with your finger, okay? So we want to create a barrier on the surface of the canvas so that it forms a skin, and then all of our other paint is going to lay right on top of that really nice and easy, okay? Hi, Juan. Thanks for joining us. Nice to see ya. Are you painting? Okay. So because we did not prime this canvas, so what priming is the canvas is cotton. So any moisture that you apply to the canvas is going to absorb and soak into that. So because we're limited on time, we're just going to use a tonal background of color to create the barrier, and then also work as a primer to seal up our canvas so that the paint doesn't continue to soak into the surface, okay? So see how I'm using nice long brush strokes? If you have some streaks in there, that's okay because we want to give it a nice natural look. And the way that we represent dimension in our paintings is by having multiple tones. And if you just have a flat, solid color, it doesn't add as much interest to your background. So I just want to make it nice and even, but it's okay if it's streaky. And I'm also making all of my brush strokes go in horizontal directions. So sometimes when you're painting, you want to remember that you're creating an illusion, and part of that illusion is subconsciously drawing your viewer's eye where you want it to look. Okay, so if I wanted my viewer to look off to the side, I would make all my brush strokes go off at an angle, okay? But because we want the focus of our painting to be our mountain and our meadows, we're kind of creating a neutral sky background, okay? So I have a nice light blue background. Does everybody have a blue background yet? All right. So if your paint is still really, really wet, you can clean off your brush and wipe it off and dry it, and then you can run a dry paintbrush over the paint to help it push its way into the surface and then to also help dry that surface. The two things you want to remember when you're painting with acrylic paint is if you're trying to blend, while the paint is wet or still fresh, it's going to blend. And if you want to layer the paint, you need to wait for that paint to dry, okay? So if you need to fix something, you don't want to just keep adding paint on top of it necessarily. Sometimes it's easier to just be patient and let the paint dry, okay? So I have a nice light blue background. So if your paint is still wet, we're not going to get that pink that we had in the original painting, but if you wait for it to dry a little bit, you can take some red and white and you can mix a little bit of pink on the side of your plate. Or if you have pink, I wouldn't use pure pink by itself. I would still add a little bit of white to it just to make it so you have a little pink. So I can add a little bit of white to it to lighten it up. That's still pretty dark. And because we only want here, I'm going to go back to the original painting. So see how we have these light pink streaks in here? We don't need a lot of paint to create that. So what I would tell people to do is put a little bit of paint on your brush, then wipe your brush off like a peanut butter knife so you can slowly build up the colors the way that you want, okay? So instead of using the wide part of the brush like this, I'm going to turn my brush skinny ways. That way I have more control over how big the brush strokes are, okay? And I like to start from the mountain and kind of blend out. And if it's too dark, you can add little bits of white to it. So the beauty of putting pink and blue and white all together in the sky is that if you mix any combination of those in any order, they're still complementary colors, so they'll still blend nicely. So if your blue's still wet, it doesn't give you pink, you'll still get a nice soft purple color. So that's okay. So see, you can add the pink wherever you want. So if you want it up in the corner, you can add it up in the corner. I'm just adding it along, the top tip of the mountain here. Okay. And then if you want to break it up with little bits of white and create some little clouds, then you can just add a little tiny bit of white to your brush and then, kind of fan it in a few places. Okay? What do you think, guys? We doing okay so far? Am I going too fast? What do you think? Okay, so you can add as much or as little pink to your sky as you want. You can play. It's okay if some areas are darker and some areas are lighter. Like I said, that adds more interest to your painting, so don't be afraid. What's the matter, Vanessa? Is everything okay? Oh, good. Okay. She said, God. I was like, uh-oh, is her painting going wrong? I don't know. Hopefully it's going nicely. I want this to be a relaxing experience for you guys. I'm hoping that this is, a little bit of a positive distraction and is able to, create a kind of sense of calm. Okay, Laura, I'll slow down a little bit. Okay. So if you get some points on your canvas where you can still kind of see the grid of the canvas and it looks a little bit rough, that means you probably need to add a little bit more paint to create a thicker layer, or you can get more paint on your brush and then run your brush firmly over the surface, or you can get your brush a little tiny bit wet. I know I paint fast, and sometimes I forget that not everybody paints as fast as I do. So hopefully you guys are able to follow along with me in a reasonable manner. So the first step that we did was we created our pencil outline, okay? So we did one hill on the bottom on this side, and then we did another hill here that's going to be off in the far distance, and then we created a very wide mountain range, okay? So we started on one edge, we came up, and then we came down. We made it bumpy. Good, okay? And so the other thing that we did here was that we broke up our section or painting into 3 parts. And so if you've ever taken a beginning painting or drawing class, there's this thing called the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds works in a way that to, again, subconsciously make your viewer's eye wander to the places that you want it to go. So for instance, the mountain has 3 points. And so we have here, here, and here. So by creating this triangular shape, you're making your viewer's eye go from up, down, across, and over, or by creating curves on your hill, they can start from the bottom, curve up to the side, come up here, and it's kind of creating a subconscious map for your viewer's eye to wander and follow, okay? So after we created our pencil outline, we did a light blue background, very light, and if it was too dark, you added a little bit more white paint to your brush. And then when that was a little bit dry, we added a little bit of light pink or purple and white just to add some streaks in the sky. And you see in some little shine, that means my paint is a little bit wet, but that's okay. And then after I'm done with that, I'm going to take my dark blue paint that I told everybody to get, and I'm just going to paint my mountain, okay? So if your mountain edges were a little too smooth, you can cover up your pencil and you can make them a little bit more bumpy and interesting. Okay, and I'm just going to start by painting these in a solid color, okay? So what I'm doing now is this is the base color of the mountain, and it's also going to serve as our shadow, okay? And we're going to add snow or different shades of blue or white for the highlights and details on here later. What I like about this too is if you were a little messy along the edges there, you can definitely clean it up with the solid color blue, okay? So we don't need to add gobs and gobs of paint to this. What I like to do is I like to take a little bit of paint and then start putting it in here and then blend until I don't have any more paint on my brush, and then I go in and add more paint. And if you're really bad at doing smooth brush strokes, what I suggest is, one, maybe kind of hold your brush flat against the a little bit more flat against the surface, so that when you lift the brush off, you're not leaving little straight edge marks. And then the other thing is if the mountain is slanted, if your brush strokes are at least following the slant, if they're kind of bumpy along the way, that might later work to your advantage because it'll look kind of like there's bumps and creases or bumps and rocks on the mountain. So you don't want a lot of back and forth straight brush strokes like this. You want your brush strokes to be at an angle from side to side, or maybe up and down in the middle. Okay, so we're going to fill this in solid blue. And again, if your paint is super thick or super wet, you can wipe off your brush and you can run a dry brush over the surface to help push that into the surface and to help that paint dry. So are we all able to follow along okay? This is super relaxing, right? Not stressful at all. That's the funny thing about painting. For me, I can sit and paint for 6 hours and it's super relaxing for me. But for some people, if it's something that they're not comfortable doing and they don't do all the time, it can, increase their anxiety. But, when you're in the comfort of your own home, I guess, it makes it a little bit different. So if you didn't like the curve of your hill and you thought that was a little too dramatic, you can also bring down the mountain a little bit so that it's not quite so tall. So remember, if you're having trouble controlling your brush or making crisp lines, try and hold your brush a little bit lower, and then you don't have to be gentle. You can firmly push your brush against the surface to push that paint into the canvas, okay? So what's really cool about doing these virtual classes too is that some of these events, or most of them, are open to all ages, but some are 21 and over, and so it's really cool that I can open them up and, you know, kids can join in with you, hopefully. So I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Some of you guys already have paint supplies at home, but I am putting together paint kits for people that don't have supplies. So when I'm doing a class and it requires certain things, I have to-go kits available for pickup or delivery that include paint, the canvas, the brushes, all the stuff, and then, you know, the link to the event. And so if you happen to miss the live feed, you can still pick up the kits at any time, because you can go back and you can watch the event whenever it's convenient for you. So for instance, I'm doing a multimedia art class tomorrow, but this lady is working, and so she's just going to pick up the kit from me and then do the class, you know, later in the week. And that's a little better. Okay, so I have light blue sky and dark blue mountain. Is everybody with me? Are we all on the same page here? Let me know. How we doing, guys? Everybody's breathing heavy or not breathing at all. The other thing people have a tendency to do when they're painting is to hold their breath when they're trying to make that crisp line. So if you're holding your breath, remember to open your mouth and breathe, okay? Relax. And make sure you have a beverage next to you. I'm doing a lot of talking, so I want to make sure that, you know, I'm not parched while I'm talking to you guys. All right, looks like everybody's catching up. Okay, so we have light blue sky with some pink and white. We have dark blue mountain. So next, for our block painting, we're going to paint our two hills. And so in order for there to be enough contrast between these two hills, we need to make them all different colors. I'm so glad, Michelle. This is relaxing for me too. So I still have blue on my brush, but that's okay, because you know what I'm going to do with that? I'm going to dip it into some yellow paint, and I'm going to mix a light green on my plate. Okay? If I need a little bit more blue, I just need to barely touch the blue. Okay? So I'm just going to take some of that blue paint that was already on my brush and mix it with some yellow and do a light green. And then this far away, the little mountain side, I'm going to paint that light green. Okay? And if it accidentally touches the bottom of your mountain, is it going to be okay? Yes, because guess what colors make green? Blue and yellow. So if some of the blue touches the green, no problem. Okay, so I'm going to mix this. And again, remember, when you're painting the hillside, don't just do straight back and forth or up and down. You want to make sure that you're kind of following the curve of the hill. Okay, so I'm going to paint this light green. Am I talking too loud, or can you guys hear me clearly? How's this going for you? I just want to make sure that everybody's... Am I enunciating properly? Can you guys hear the clock tower? So I live in downtown Port Orchard. And so if you hear cadence from the shipyard or the clock tower bells or, you know, lawnmowers going, it's because I'm right in the heart of downtown. It's actually pretty quiet living here. I love it. And I have a view of the mountains and the water, so I have lots of inspiration every day for painting. All right. Thanks, Vanessa. I appreciate that. Vanessa says, I'm doing great. What do you guys think? So again, if you're not getting good coverage, don't pile on the paint. Just do a nice, so if it's like kind of see-through or it's not covering the way that you want to, just do a nice thin coat. Wipe off your brush if you have a ton of paint, thin out the paint, let it, the more you run your brush over the paint while it's wet, the more smooth it's going to be, okay? And then let that dry, and then you could do a second coat later. Don't worry about just piling on the paint immediately. This is not, we're not in a hurry. It's not a race, okay? And then also make sure, instead of doing short brush strokes like this, you want to make sure you do nice long brush strokes, okay? So can anybody guess what the next step is going to be? So we painted a dark blue mountain. We painted a light green hill. What's the next step going to be? Can anybody guess? Anybody guess? Is it hard to type answers? Is there a way to do like speech typing on these? I wonder. Okay, so I have a dark hill, I have a light green hill. Because we want to have a contrast, I want my next hill to be dark green, okay? Yes, we're going to paint the other hill, but are we going to paint it the same color? No. So blue and yellow make green. So if we want a dark green, we just need to add more of what color to it to make it darker, guys? More blue. Yes, dark green hill. That is correct, Dana. You win. Okay, so we're going to do two different colors. So we have blue, light green, and then we have dark green. Okay? And if you already have dark green, like as a paint color, then just paint that in. Here's another thing that people don't know about acrylic paints is that some colors cover better than others on the canvas, okay? So there's two kinds of colors. There are opaque colors, and then there are translucent colors. And green tends to be kind of a translucent color. So you can add a tiny little bit of yellow to it, and that will help cover up a little bit better. But again, do thin coats, and you'll get the coverage you need there. So what we really want to see is we want to see a strong contrast between the mountain, this hill, and this hill. If these two colors are too close together, then you're not going to be able to tell that they're separate. So you want to pay attention to the contrast of light and dark. I also did the further away hill lighter because I want to imagine that the sun is kind of shining on this here, and this is closer to us, and so it's kind of further away from the sun, so I imagine that that was kind of darker. I'm so glad. I'm glad that it's helping you, Linda. It does me good too. So be sure to share with your friends too, guys. If you know somebody else that could benefit from, painting with me and following along with this, send it to them. Go buy them some art supplies and be like, do this. Take your mind off of, everything that's going on. Just get lost on the canvas for a minute. Okay? So again, remember, make sure you're following the curves here to make it a little bit more interesting. Make your viewer's eye wander to where you want it to go. Okay? All right. You can smooth out the lines. The other reason why we painted that little hill first is in case you had any messy lines, when you come in front of it, you can clean up those edges with the darker color here. Okay? All right. Dun, dun, dun. So I call this block painting. We're just creating our base for all of the other stuff that's about to go in front of it. Okay, we're going to add all the fancy detail on top of this. Okay, so again, if it's just blending and blending like crazy and you can't get the streaks of the lines on the canvas out, wipe your brush off and get it dry on a paper towel or on your apron or on a towel, and then run a dry brush over the surface, okay, and thin it out. And then if it's not covering the way that you want, you can always go back in and add a second layer. Just because you put one brush stroke on here, guys, it's not permanent. That's what I like to tell people, is that don't worry about, you know, what it looks like at first, because you can always build on that. All right. Da-da. All right. So if you guys can hear saws in the background, I apologize if it's loud. My neighbor is building a chicken coop, so about to have some fresh eggs available. So that's pretty cool. All right. So our base for our painting should be done. So I just want to see, is everybody on the same page as me, or is everybody done with the base of their painting? So I'm just going to go back to the original here, just so everybody can see. Here is where we started, okay? So look at this. So there's our little hill, there's our big hill, here's our mountain, and then, so if your colors are not intense enough, you can always go back and intensify them. Okay, so if you decide that, that's boring, I don't like how that looks, I can make it a little bit darker. I can go back in and add more paint, okay? So I'll see if I want to add a little bit more color to the sky. So while you guys are catching up, I'm going to fiddle with my sky a little bit more. So not only do I teach people how to paint, but I do a lot of commission art. People hire me to do portraits for them. I paint windows and murals for businesses and organizations. I've been painting for a really long time, and I do a lot of different things, and that's, you know, pretty much the way that it works. If you want to do that for your job, you have to be really, really good at one thing, or be able to do a whole lot of different things to be able to make it your job. I'm going too fast, Renee? Where are you at? Okay, so tell me where you are and what you need help with. So I'm going to go over the steps of what we did while we're waiting for everybody to catch up, okay? So we put out our canvas, we took our pencil, and we did, oh, thank you, Michelle. We drew a very light pencil line of one hill going all the way across the canvas. And then we did a pencil line here going all the way across this way. And then we took our pencil and we drew a lumpy, bumpy, but low-riding triangle for our mountain range. Okay, so that was the first step with our pencil. And then we mixed a light blue color, and we filled and blended our whole background behind the mountain with a light blue. Oh, you're still painting the small hill. Okay, that's okay, Renee. You can catch up. We'll catch you up. Don't worry. So we painted our whole background light blue, okay? And then after we painted the sky light blue, what was next, guys? Who remembers? What did we do after we painted the sky light blue? What was the next step? Anybody? Anybody? We have 40 viewers right now. Hi, everybody. Hi, 40 viewers. How many of you are not painting, but you're creeping on me? Pink, that's right. So we painted our sky light blue, and it was okay if it had streaks in it, right? We just used horizontal brush strokes, and then we mixed a little bit of light pink. So if you only had red, you would just mix a little tiny bit of red with white, right? To make some pink. And if you needed to soften the edges, you could add a little bit of white. Oh, good. Yes, and we dried it too. Yeah, that's true. So after we did our light blue sky, we added light pink and a little white to soften it. And if we got some purples in there, that was okay, right? So, and then our next step was to paint our mountain solid dark blue. I'm so glad, Linda. Thank you. I love it too. I love it enough to keep doing it. Nobody's scared me away from it yet. You have to have thick skin if you're an artist, because you get a lot of rejection. Jack Parker's creeping, everybody. Get him. All right. So we did a dark blue mountain, And then to make sure that we had contrast on our whole painting, we mixed with our dirty light blue brush, or brush that had blue paint on it, we mixed a very light green color, mixing blue, and what color makes light green? Creepers. We used blue and a lot of yellow to make a very light green. And then we painted our small mountain. And then we used a lot more blue to make our green darker. And then we painted the big hill. So by this time, everybody should be done. Okay? So, hi John, hi Alicia. You guys can creep on me anytime while I'm painting. I'm glad you guys are joining us. Thanks for joining us. So everybody should be caught up at this point. Oh, I'm so glad, Dana. All right, so let's see. Yay. Hi, everybody. I just want to make sure that, everybody's caught up. I'm watching the comments and I'm watching you. I got a new phone. How's the picture look? Is it clear? Can everybody see everything clearly? Are you hearing me okay? Cool. I'm going to flip it back around. Okay. So give me a thumbs up if you guys are done and ready to move on to the next step. Give me some hearts or some thumbs so I know that we're ready, because I'm ready. I'm ready to go to the next step. Okay, so John and Alicia, if you're just joining us, this is what we are painting. This was our inspiration painting. Oh, good. That's good to know. This is our inspiration painting. It's kind of a Mount Rainier inspired painting. Okay, and then we created a pencil outline, and then we're filling in that pencil outline with block colors. So these are our base colors for creating the next step. Okay? So by this time, our mountain should be dry. Okay? So for our mountain, we're going to start adding different shades of white or light blue to create texture on the surface of that solid blue, to make sure that we add a little bit of depth to our painting. Okay? So this is where people get nervous about adding color to their painting, but don't worry about it, because we're going to be just using white paint. Okay, and the beauty of just using this is if you add too much white paint on the mountain and you don't like where you applied it, just thin it out and let it dry and paint over it with dark blue again. Simple enough, right? So I'm going to take a little bit of white paint on my brush. So I dip it in my paint, and then I kind of wipe the edges of my brush so that I have some on there, but not a giant blob, okay? And then instead of using the wide part of my brush, I'm going to turn my brush sideways and add an angle, and I'm going to touch the side of the mountain. So I'm going to start by just tracing along the top edge, okay? And I don't have to do the whole mountain. I can just do a little section. And if you miss a little bit, don't worry. That's okay, because this is going to serve as a highlight, and anytime you see little bits of blue, it's just going to look like a shadow to your viewer. So instead of making it a smooth edge, you can take your brush and you can kind of scrub. So I'm still keeping it sideways. You can kind of scrub from right to left just to make it a little bit more interesting and not just like a perfectly straight, smooth line. And there's your first little mountain. So we're not going to do the whole side. We're just going to focus on the right side for now, just to give it a little bit of depth, okay? So I'm not going to go all the way down. I'm just going to do the top section. And then I can create like another little mountain. See, like I can do like an upside down little check right there. And then I can bring that down. And then I can also kind of scrub underneath that to give it a little bit of interest, okay? So I can continue to do that process. So instead of going down every single edge, I can do more checks like this. Instead of making them smooth though, make them kind of bumpy every once in a while, and then scrub back and forth along the bottom, okay? And then every once in a while, if you want to add some along the edge, you can add down there, okay? So we're just going to focus on this side of the mountain. So all my brush strokes, so remember, we're creating that illusion of depth, okay? So we need to make sure that our brush strokes are slanted so that our viewer is following your brush strokes down the slope, okay? So once you've done this side, you can then, kind of fill in a few other spots if you want. What I like to do is I like some areas to be heavy with paint, and then I like to wipe off my brush so I have very, very little paint, and that way I can kind of scrub a few areas and it looks like a softer shade and it's not quite so intense. But see, so I'm creating a slanted brush stroke that way. So check this out. I'm just going to go, look. Oh no, I messed up my mountain. Whatever will I do? Okay, so if I don't like that, or I thought I added too much white, I just check and make sure that it's smoothed out or blended and dry, and then look. I can add blue over the top. So if you do something that you don't like, guys, it's not the end of the painting world. You can go back and you can make adjustments and you can fix that, okay? So also, if you wanted to take a little bit of blue and then just add a few little patches in the middle of these little white sections that you made to break it up a little bit, it just looks like the snow has fallen on some spots and then not on others, and it creates kind of a dimension, okay? So don't just do like one patch of white, because you want it to look like this is actually a rocky surface. So make sure that you're adding it in a lot of different areas. Like, so for instance, if I trace the side right here, let me show you something cool. So if I trace the side here, and instead of continuing to trace down the hill, if I cut down and in front, then it makes, and then I kind of scrub underneath, it makes it look like I've created an area where this part of the mountain is in front of that, and that one's darker because it appears to look like a shadow. Okay, so you guys can continue to play with that. So if you covered up, an area with blue, just make sure that whatever area you did cover up, that the paint is dry before you continue to start adding and blending little spots on top of it, okay? I'm very curious to see how all of your mountains turn out. So I'm also going to show you how to make a cloud so that, if there was a part of your mountain that you weren't really digging, you could just cover it with the cloud. That's why Bob Ross calls them happy trees and happy clouds, because they cover up stuff we don't necessarily want or need in our painting. So none of my brush strokes are going up and down or from right to left. If it's on this side of the mountain, my brush strokes are going at an angle that way to give the illusion of sloping this direction. And if they're going this way, they're sloping and going that direction, okay? And you can add as many little patches as you want to this, okay? How's my mountain looking? How's your mountain looking? Are we feeling stressed or are we feeling happy? Let me know. So this is all shiny because that paint's still wet. So what color represents to us in a painting is depth, okay? So if you're painting something and in reality it's only one color, you're not necessarily going to use only one color when you're painting an illusion of it on a canvas. You need to use a variety of color. Oh, Laura, I bet it looks awesome. I bet you're doing good. Don't be so hard on yourself. Excuse me while I take a drink of water. Can you guys hear me swallowing my water? All right, so I want to make sure that everybody's caught up and has a mountain in front of them, okay? So I just want to show you, look how much white is on the original painting here, guys. There's a lot of white, so don't be afraid to let some of it be thick, and it's okay if some patches are light and some are dark, okay? And the more you add on there, the more texture it adds to your painting. So don't be afraid to play. Like I said, you can always go back and add adjustments and do more things to your painting. Okay, so I'm just going to wait for everybody to catch up. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So let me know. We could probably paint our mountains forever. But I'm not going to be on here painting forever, so let me know when you guys are at a good point here. Who's done with their mountain? All right, so while you guys are working on your mountain, I am going to work on the next part while you guys are working on that. And you can still work on your mountain while you see what I'm going to do for the next step. Okay, so in order to create contrast and more depth on each of our green hills, we need to use contrasting colors. So if I have a light hill, in order to create contrast on it, I need to use a what kind of color? I'm still going to use green, but it's going to be, Tiffany says maybe. Good. So to create contrast on our hill, and we have a light green here, but if we want to create little shadows or valleys on that hill, we need to use a darker color. If we want to create valleys on the darker hill, we need to use a contrasting light color. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dark green that I used before for my dark hill. So I know that some of you guys are still painting your mountain. That's okay. I'm just going to show you what we're going to do for the next step. So I'm going to take a little bit of dark green, and I'm going to start at the top and using sweeping motions. So my brush is flat like this. Here, let me get a little bit more dark green so you guys can see. So our green hills should be contrasting. So I just want to create some little valleys, and I also want to make it so that my viewer's eye is kind of wandering in different directions. So I'm starting at the top of my hill, and I'm kind of scrubbing from right to left just to create some little points of interest along my hill there. Okay. And they don't all have to be exactly the same length. They don't all have to be exactly the same size. I'm just creating some little shadow valleys here just to make it a little bit more interesting, okay? Just to make it look like there's a little bit more depth. So I made those go that direction. And if I wanted to like make it look like there's like a little hill going this way, I could change the direction of my scrubbing to make it cut across that way, okay? And then on the dark hill, I can use yellow or I can use light green, and I can do the same thing here. Like I can start on the top of the hill like this. So I just put yellow on my brush, and I can scrub from right to left using the skinny part of my brush, okay, to create some little, just some little shades to make it go in different directions here, okay? I just don't want everything to be all the same color, so we want to create some depth. Hi Ashley, I see you. Thanks for joining. Okay. So you notice how I made the zigzags on this hill go this way, and I made the zigzags on this hill go this way, just to add a little bit of interest. Oh, Ashley, you are awesome. Thank you for joining us. We are just painting our hearts out over here, hopefully. Okay, so for those of you guys that were finishing up painting your mountain, or for you guys that were done painting your mountain and wanted something to do, we're just adding contrast to our hills. So if you had a light hill here, you're using a darker green, just a little bit of paint, just to use scrubbing motion from, so I'm laying my brush flat and just scrubbing from right to left to create some little zigzag valleys that way. And then on the dark hill, you can use yellow or light green to create some little dips on my mountain going the opposite direction on the other side. So I start at the top of the hill and then I work my way away. So I'm just going to show you. So here's the original painting again for reference, just to see what that looks like. So these can be super thick and crazy. They don't have to be really thin and separate and perfectly even. So see, look, this one's really long. This one's really short. This one's long again. All it does is it creates little dips and valleys and rows on our painting, okay? It's so funny because I can't hear any of you, so usually I would hear the groans and the whines of the people going, ah, big sighs. I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, so it's hard to read how everybody's doing. Hope you're all doing great. Okay. Am I still going too fast, or is everybody on the same page still? Because I really want to add some trees to the top of my mountain hills here. What are you laughing at, Jack? All right. Groan, Tiffany says. Hopefully it's not a groan. Hopefully you're still having fun. All right. Yeah, you are a sire. That is the truth. You're great, Laura. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, Steph, you caught up. You came half hour late. You can always watch the replay. So, Steph, if you missed the first half, this video will still be up after I'm done teaching, and you can go back and you can watch the replay and you can go over everything again or try it again on a different piece of paper or canvas. So no worries. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad you're here, even if it was half hour late. Okay. All right. So we done with our hills. I'm moving on to the next step, guys. I hope you guys are fast painters because I'm moving on. So the illusion that we're trying to create in the hills and the mountain here, oh good, is the illusion of depth. We want this hill to be the far away hill and this hill to be the closer hill. So when you're trying to create the illusion of perspective in your painting, things that are far away are going to be painted smaller, and things that are closer are going to be bigger. Okay, so what we're going to do we're going to add some little trees just to the top, along the top line of this hill. And we're going to make some little tiny trees. So remember, this is impressionistic painting, so these don't have to be realistic. But I'm going to use, because this is a light green, I'm going to use dark green. Okay? And so I'm not just going to literally paint the shape of a tree. I'm just going to take my brush and turn it up and down like this. And I'm going to tap. Just tap, 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 tap along the top of my mountain here. Okay, or along the top of my hill. So I'm just tapping with the sideways edge of the brush. And I want each of these trees to be little, okay, but close together. And then you can also use, if you need to, and you're making too big of strokes, you can, instead of using the whole part of the brush, just use the corner of the brush. Just tap with just the corner. And we're just going to create some little up and down tapping trees all the way along the edge here. Okay, so I'm just tapping, tap, 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 like this. Hi, Leslie. Oh, I miss you. Hope you're doing good. I like seeing your live videos. You're doing great, girl. That's pretty cool. All right, so I'm just using dark green and I'm tap, tap, tap. So if you have a lot of space between those trees, bring them a little bit closer together, because if you have too much space, then it won't look as natural. Oh, that's great, Leslie. I'm so glad. Okay, so we're adding some tree lines, and you'll notice they're not in a perfect line. Some of them start a little bit lower, start a little bit higher. So I'm making them all different heights so it looks a little bit more organic, but they're touching the top of that hill that we made. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing on this hill, starting in the middle. but these trees are going to be bigger, okay? So you're still going to use your dark green, but these ones are going to be a little bit taller. You know, the kind of trees that these look like when you're tapping with your brush like that, they look like the kind of trees that grow like when you go to orchards in Eastern Washington or wineries, like the tall trees that block out the wind. Okay, so I'm just using dark green at first, and it's going to look weird at first with just the dark green, but I'm going to show you guys how we can bring these trees to life. Okay, again, do not make all your trees exactly the same height, because that's boring. That's not how nature works. Nature doesn't just go, I'm going to make everything exactly perfectly in sync. Look at how things are going right now. All right. So I'm just using, again, I'm using the sideways edge of the brush, and I'm just tapping gently, not super aggressively. Remember, we're supposed to be soothing and calming here. And again, if you're trying to make more of a point, just use either the corner of your brush or just very gently tap. So when your bristles spread, when you're tapping, it should create kind of a textured finish to make it look like those kind of trees I was talking about. So we used dark green and the sideways edge of our brush. See how my bristles are spread out like that? By just going up. So these ones are little because they're further away, and these ones should be taller because they're supposedly closer to us in our imaginary little land that we made. Okay? And by the time you're done doing all these little trees should be dry. Okay? So if that's the case, then you are going to take a little bit of yellow. Oh, good, Leslie, me too. And I've been using the paints that you hooked me up with too, so thank you for that. So again, acrylic paint blends best when it's wet. And so if we want to layer colors, which we're going to do, we're going to layer some highlights onto these trees. We don't want the trees to be super wet. So these little trees should be dry. And if they are, you're going to take yellow on your brush, and then you're just going to lightly tap on the right side of each of those trees. You can skip a few if they're too close together. But what that's going to do is, look, see, I'm just tapping very gently along the edge of each of those little fake trees that I made. And you guys see how it's creating a little highlight on each of those trees? Yes? No? Maybe? Good. They really did. Leslie, Sydney is using them too, so I appreciate that. So if these trees are still wet, you want to fan them, take a drink of whatever you're drinking, take a break, let them rest for a second. But then again, you're going to tap the yellow on the right side of these trees too. And they don't need to be perfect little neat lines. You want them to be kind of messy so they look like shrubbery, okay? And if it's not showing up, it's probably because your paint's too wet and the paint is blending together. So you have to wait for the paint to be dry. Don't just put on gobs of paint. You don't need a lot, just a little bit, okay? And then I'm just tapping along the right side to add that little highlight and bring these together. So see how they're all touching each other? It's like they're growing wild along the hillside up there, and they've kind of grown together to create like this wall. Oh, Tiffany, you're doing great. No worries. Okay, there you go. So you can add as many or as few little highlights as you want. Okay? And again, if you went crazy with the yellow and it was too yellow, then just let it dry. Let it dry. Be patient and let it dry. And then go back and add more dark in. So you know, you can always just continue to add layers. So now that you know how to do that, you don't just have to do it in 2 steps and be done. You can go back after you've done another step, and then you can, you know, add more in. So for instance, like on the hills here, if I felt like this dried too dark and I wanted to make a more accentuated hill, I can still go back in and add more depth to this. I don't have to stop because we skipped that step. Okay? So I'm going to paint these while I wait for you guys to catch up on painting trees. We're almost done, guys. All we have left to do is learn how to paint clouds, and then we're going to add all those little pretty flowers. So again, if you guys find value in this video, or you know somebody that would appreciate having a little painting lesson and they have the supplies at home, share this video to them. And if they don't have the supplies at home and are stuck and they want to, I have paint kits that I am putting together for people to pick up. I'm selling the 8x10 paint kits with, you know, like a brush and all the paints and a little plate and stuff, for $15, and then the bigger ones are $20. And yeah, we can do pickup or delivery in a safe, sanitary, safe distance environment. Okay, so for those of you guys with the paint kits, how's it going for you guys? Let me know if what you have is working for you. And again, if there's anything that I can add or take away that makes a difference, I want to make that good for you guys. So let me know how that's working for you. Do you have enough paint? Are you getting clear enough directions? How's all that going for you? Let people know. And the class that I'm doing today is free, of course, but if you feel like it brought value to you and you want to make a contribution to the Rimbert Illustration Art Fund, I am still in business. You can send, you know, a paint donation for the class to my email at drimbert79@gmail.com in PayPal, or I've also put the PayPal link in where the tickets would normally go. All right, so I'm done with my hills and mountains. Who's ready to learn how to paint clouds? So here, I'm just going to go back and forth. So there is the one I'm painting with you. Here's the original. There's the original. Good, Dana. I'm glad. That I just want to make sure I, you know, get in those volumes of paint. I wanted to make sure that you guys had enough. But that means you guys can do another painting. You can follow one of the other lessons. Go back and paint a wave. Thanks, Leslie. I sure appreciate that. So here's our original painting. I'm so glad, Angie. I'm glad. Okay, here's our original painting. So all we have left to learn is how to paint a cloud and how to add in our little flowers. Where are you guys at? You doing okay? So there's where I'm at here. Anybody want to buy a painting? I'm going to have a lot of doubles. A lot of doubles after this. I'm happy to share, though. Happy to share with you. So I'm happy to do these online classes too, guys. This gives me a little feeling of normalcy. I'm still able to connect with all my people that I normally paint with, and I get to connect with a few new people, and that makes me super happy. I want to still be able to, you know, contribute something to the community and work with people, and, you know, it makes me feel good, and hopefully it makes you guys feel good to be able to paint along with me and, you know, learn some stuff here. All right, so I know you guys are still catching up and doing some stuff, but in the meantime, while you're catching up, I'm going to move on to the next step. So I'm just going to get started on the background for my flower spray. So I'm going to take my paintbrush with a little bit of yellow paint. I'm going to put yellow on it, and then I'm just going to tap onto my plate so I don't have a ton on there. And I'm just going to dab down here along the bottom just to create some little yellow speckles, just to create kind of a separation. So I'm just doing this along the bottom, and it does not, I don't want it to be super crazy and thick. I just want to add a little bit of contrast. So I'm just tapping my brush. So some of the brush strokes can be up and down, some can be sideways. Just adding some yellow along the bottom. And I do not want this to be all filled in. I just want to have, you know, some texture just along the bottom of the canvas. This is where our flowers are going to go, and this is going to add a little separation so we know that's where they're going to go. Okay? So you know what else works really good if you guys are painting these flowers and you have them? So those cheap paintbrushes that you buy from the paint store that have like the crazy bristles that poke everywhere, that you wouldn't paint your trim with, but you probably still have them around your house. Let me see if I can find one. So if you have a paintbrush with like bristles like this, can you guys see that? It's kind of blurry. I don't know, but if you have that and they're kind of pokey, let me see. Because they're pokey and stiff, they work good for texture painting. If your bristles are softer like this one, sometimes it's a little bit harder, but you know, we make it work. We make it work with what we got. All right, so I'm just going to wait for everybody to catch up on that, and just let me know if you have questions. All right. Are we ready to move on to the next step? I know I'm feeling ready. Who wants to learn how to make some clouds? So if you want to make clouds, make sure that your brush is nice and cleaned off, okay? Okay, make sure your brush is nice and cleaned off. Start nice and dry. Okay, and then if you want to make a cloud, so what I tell people when they make clouds is, yeah, you look up in the sky and you can make fluffy clouds with just white. But if you use two colors for when you're making your fluffy clouds, it adds a little bit more dimension. And so when you're in the sky, if you use complementary colors in your sky, any background color can be pretty. So for instance, if I did white and light blue for my cloud, that would be pretty. If I use white and pink for my cloud, that would work. If I use white and purple, any of those would work. So whatever the color that you would decide to use for your cloud, you would lay that down first. So for instance, if I was going to use blue or light blue, so I just mixed I mixed a little light blue on my plate, and then I wiped my brush off so I don't have a ton on there, okay? And I can add a cloud by using a light tapping motion. So what I do when I add my clouds is I first tap and create kind of like a little cotton ball shape, and that's going to be where the center of my cloud is. And then as I have less paint on my brush, I will gradually work out and away from that center point that I created, okay? And so the more you tap on the paint while it's wet, the softer and more blended it will be, okay? And to create a cumulus cloud, or like a rain cloud, like we have in Washington a lot of the time, you want the bottom to be, or the middle to be a little bit thicker and a little bit higher in the middle, and then it's like a lumpy triangle. So you'll see how it kind of flattens out, and then the edges kind of go out to the side here. So when you're painting clouds, you always want to use the base color, like the darker color first. So that's like a nice thin layer. And again, the more you tap it out, the more soft you can get. And you can start small and then gradually work your way across. And if you want to get aggressive, you can start adding it in front of your mountain. And then I take white. And again, you don't need a ton of white. I just wipe my brush off so that I don't have tons on my brush. And then so this is where people run into issues with their cloud. They, instead of running across the whole cloud or running it in a complete border, you just want to tap. You want to kind of follow the pattern you created along the top edge, okay? And then if you want to extend it, you can go further than that. And then, see, this paint is still wet, so I can wipe off my brush. Wipe off your brush. And then while the paint is still wet, if I tap just underneath where that white is that I put on there, see how it softens and blends those two colors together? because acrylic paint blends best when it is wet. So instead of adding it through the whole cloud, I just added it like along the top edge to add a little bit of a fluffy highlight there. Here, I'll do another cloud just to show you guys that again. So if I go up in this corner and I tap, the drinking always makes the painting look better, Ricky says. Drink more wine. I'm only drinking water. So here, see, so this cloud is a little bit darker, but that's okay. So see, I'm starting in the middle, and if you get kind of a polka dotted look, that means you're jumping too far away. Start from the middle and just gradually work out and away. And so see, the edges are all lumpy, but it's kind of like this triangle shape. So see, it's kind of flatter here, it gets higher up there, it comes down. But see, you can create these fun little lumps or little tails off to the edge, okay? And then clean off your brush. Add a little bit of white, and white goes where? Goes along the top. So see, I can kind of follow the pattern of the top of the cloud, okay? And then wipe your brush off, and then tap underneath to soften the bottom edge. And then if you have like a really big area on your cloud where there's a giant chunk and it's just too dark, you can take a little bit of white and just add like a tiny little patch just on the inside of there. So I would never want to add the white all the way around. I would just want to add it along all the way along the top or all the way along the bottom, depending on where the imaginary light source is coming from. Okay? But see, so by adding that blue first, we, laid our shadow down for our cloud, and then we put the white on top. And so if you put the white on and it's all just turning light blue, it's because you probably had too much blue paint, or you didn't wait for it to dry enough. If you want it to layer properly so that there, is more texture, then you need to wait, for the paint to dry a little bit longer. All right, so what do you guys think? Clouds? Are clouds magical? And if your blue is too dark, you can certainly soften some of that. Just tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tappy. Just like Adam Sandler says. Okay. And then the last step is to do flowers. Who is brave and made some clouds on their painting? Some happy clouds. Thank you, Judith. Maybe we'll send you a mountain painting. Do you guys need a mountain painting in Arizona? Very cool. Vanessa, cloud emojis, magical, mystical. So what I express in the beginning at all my classes usually is that I teach so here's the original painting. You'll notice my clouds are not in the same spot. Oh my goodness, you guys. It's like I changed the painting. But is it okay? Absolutely, yes, it's okay. I try and explain to people when they come and paint with me, it's okay to do your own thing. I just want to teach you techniques and have you guys play and hopefully leave with something that's originally yours that you can be proud of and play with. So there's my clouds for now. All right, and then we're going to add some colors. All right, so we're doing flowers here, guys. We're going to do flowers. So what we're going to do when we paint these flowers is you're either going to use the flat edge of your paintbrush like this, or you're going to use the corner edges, okay? So you're going to tap forward like this, or you're going to use the corner edges, and we're going to use a variety of colors. And so because we have a dark background, we want to start by layering light colors so that we have a good strong contrast. So one good light color that we could use is white. So I can take white on my paintbrush and I can create these little columns. So all I'm doing is I'm tapping some little columns in white, and notice they're different heights and they're going in different directions. Okay, Some of them can even overlap each other. Okay. So just light tapping that way. So you don't want to push too hard, just very lightly. That way when the bristles spread, you still get some of the texture from the sides of your bristles. Okay, so there's some white. And so we're just going to continue to do columns like this and fill in the whole bottom of our canvas. But you have to make sure that you're really careful about the order that you put the colors in. Like for instance, if I wanted to put blue flowers and then add some orange flowers, I wouldn't do those right next to each other, because if blue and orange mix and the paint's still wet, you get brown. So I want to make sure that I'm, using a variety of colors that are going to still look good together. So I did a light color. Now I can go to a darker color, for instance. See, I can tap in and add little pink columns. And look, these pink columns are going to either cross over. See, they can cross over the white, start at the bottom, make them different heights. And we want to get this as full as possible. So see, I'm just using the sideways part of my paintbrush. All right. So if I choose one color, I just want to do one color at a time. So if I did a bunch of white rows, do that first. If I choose pink, I would do a bunch of pink rows, or if you use red or blue. Okay. So another complementary color of pink would be blue, because if pink accidentally mixes with blue, I would get purple, right? So see how they can be different heights. So I can make these ones shorter even if I want to. Okay, I can fill in the bottom. Okay. All right, so let me show you another trick. So for instance, if I wanted to add blue in here, let me show you something else. So if I do blue and I dip into blue, but then I dip into white too, so that they're both on my brush. Look what happens when I have blue and white on my brush without mixing them, and I just tap. Can add a little bit more white so that I can get different little highlights and shadows without doing a lot of work. So the more, I will tell you guys, the more that you fill in the bottom with these little rows, the better. You don't want there to be giant gaps. Also, please avoid trying to make patterns. We don't want these all to be exactly the same height, all exactly in perfect little, spaced out. Try and avoid making patterns. Let your mind relax. Do not overthink this, okay? Just play for a minute. Just take a minute to look at your paints and go, this color is calling to me. This one is relaxing. This one is, I just like how this one looks. So if you do blue, make sure that you don't add yellow on top of that until the yellow dries. But if you wanted to add some yellow in, you could certainly do that, like in the back areas, a little bit thicker. Just don't want to do that over the blue paint, because you don't want it to be mixing and just turning all kinds of green. So I'm just filling that in and playing, okay? And hopefully it will give the illusion of a lot of wild flowers happening at the bottom. So if you wanted to make if you wanted to play and make some other different types of flowers, the other thing that you can do is you could use the tip of your paintbrush, the end, not the bristles, and that can make some little dots. So like for instance, if I wanted to add like little sprays of dots, I could just dip into the paint and then add little dots, and then I can use a different color. So here, for instance, if I could use a different color like yellow or orange or whatever, and I can do dots around the edge to create other little flowers. Or little speckles, or if you want to just break up the color here. But the formula is, if you use a dark color, make sure the next color is a light color. If you use a light color, make sure the next color is a dark color. And then also pay attention to what happens if you mix certain colors together, because if you mix certain colors together while they're wet, you may end up with not pretty colors. So, but yeah, there's my flower. So you can make these as elaborate as you want. I mean, instead of it being a perfect little row, if you want it to really get wild and kind of come in from the edges, you can tap along the sides. And again, the more filled in it is, the more fun it is. You need the mountain in Arizona. Jack's got a mountain painting for you. His turned out pretty great, actually. I think we would just send it to you, Judith. No purchase necessary for family. All right. Anyway, I mean, I could just keep going and going and going with this, you guys. What do you think? Do we have wildflowers? How's it going? You guys got awfully quiet over there. Is everybody super concentrating? So make sure there's no spaces along the bottom of your painting. Should be all filled in along the bottom to kind of frame in the bottom of your canvas. And that's it. So here, there is my painting that I painted along with you guys. And here is the original. So see, if you wanted to make like these little tiny blobs, I'm just using the corner of my paintbrush just to create little thicker blobs down along the bottom. And it's okay to let those kind of cross over each other and go in different directions. And so this is the one I just did painting with you guys right there. I'm back. You guys painting away? How did it go? Comments? Questions? What can I do for you? How can I help you out? I'm so happy to see such a nice big group today participating with me. I feel like it's really important for us to keep our minds active, stay together, work as a community to see how we can help each other, either just to pass the time, to stay positive, look for different creative outlets just to, think out of the box and problem solve in a way that we normally wouldn't. So I'm just hoping that I was able to brighten your day. Oh, Vanessa, I want to see your trees. So if you have a question about the trees, you can also message me. But I bet you that they turned out great. I just wanted to do something cool, guys, and keep my mind busy while we were in here. I'm happy to be painting with you guys, and that you're joining me and supporting me too through this journey. The only way that we're going to be able to get through this is if we help each other, listen to each other, respect each other, and share what we can with one another during this time. And thank goodness for the internet, so we're able to connect in this way. So what I would really love and really be happy to see is for you guys to share your paintings that you created with me, share those with other people and tell them how your experience was. You can always leave reviews on our page and contribute. Hopefully I was able to keep your 8-year-old's attention. I know sometimes my daughter speeds ahead and gets bored. So hopefully you guys all had a great time and were able to follow the directions thoroughly. I'm going to turn the camera around and show you the original painting one more time so that you guys can review. And if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. Also, the link will stay up, so feel free to share this link with other people or to rewatch it and try it again. I'm hoping that this you gathered some value from this and were able to learn, and I can't wait to see what your paintings all look like. So this is what we painted today. This is what I painted with you while I gave you directions, and this was my original. This is a very popular painting that we do when we do the paint and sip classes in person. I think that, it brings a lot of peace to be able to paint something that, we all love to look at. We want to be frolicking out there in that field and looking up on a bright day with the bright blue sky and that mountain and smell that fresh air. And so just imagine that you're in that place and you're able to lay in that field of flowers and relax and, take deep breaths and remember to, take time for yourself and take space for yourself and take care of yourselves, guys. And thank you for supporting me. And, I hope you'll tune in to the other live videos that I'm doing. So if you want to see the other paint classes, if you go to the Rimbert Illustration Facebook page and look under events, there is a schedule of the ones that I have coming up. And if you guys have suggestions for other things that I can do or to reach out and help you, or you need supplies, then just send me a message. And I hope you guys all have a good afternoon and are able to relax. And I'm happy that I got to paint with you. See you later, guys.